welcome back to another episode of Beating Alpha. And this is episode 124. And we have a very special guest on. For some of you who are looking to learn about real estate investing, particularly multifamily, this is going to be a great episode for you. So make sure to keep watching. And today's guest is Becky Nova. So again, a little bit of background of hers and the things that she's working on and things that she's done in the past. So she received 2 Bachelor of Arts Degrees from American University in Washington, D.C., concurrently in psychology and law and science. She was also a student athlete excelling in field hockey and softball. During her undergraduate years, Becky started her full-time career in cancer research. After receiving her Master of Arts in Psychology in Education from Columbia University in New York City, she moved to Europe. In Spain, she founded a tour company which expanded into Portugal, where she opened a beachfront restaurant. That's an interesting topic to cover. Upon her return to the United States, Becky returned to the cancer research while looking for the next entrepreneurial endeavor. In 2018, she and her husband, Emilio, purchased their first duplex in Yonkers, New York. And she was hooked from that point, as she says here. So just a year later, she bought a 4-family in the same neighborhood, as well as a condo in the Dominican Republic, another great topic, investing abroad, her husband's native country. Now she has acquired 10 doors in competitive high cost of living areas in 2 years. So basically, she has grown a love for working with first-time investors and runs a popular Facebook group called Lady Landlords. So make sure to go and find that on Facebook to empower women to become knowledgeable and confident in real estate investing. Due to its popularity, Becky has created digital courses, worksheets, live events, and YouTube channel to aid her followers on their journey. And of course, for more information, Lady Landlords, that's the Facebook, Instagram, Becky Nova 24, YouTube, Live Free with Becky Nova, and ladylandlords.com website. And of course, all these links are going to be down below, so make sure to click them and go and get in contact with Becky. But really appreciate you being today on the episode. Thanks so much.
Of course. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm always happy to share and hopefully give some piece of information that'll help another investor move forward in their journey as well.
I'm sure. And that's what we hear. That always came together to provide a little bit of value guidance for, women investor and maybe a few men, maybe that we can teach them a little bit. What does it take to get invested in real estate? And I think it's when it comes to the timing, it's a good time, because a lot of people are, kind of misguided. So, okay. So talking about your own personal journey, I mean, coming back to the point of, I don't know if we want to go back to bachelor degrees in art and that, but I think one topic is very interesting. Again, the cancer research. So can you tell the story behind that? How did you get involved with this?
Sure. So as it kind of relates actually to my bachelor's degrees. So my bachelor degrees are in psychology and also in law. So when I was in undergrad, I was looking for some type of job that I can work at. I grew up in a very poor family. I had to kind of pay through college. I didn't want to end up in student debt, which in America is, a ton of money to be able to go to school here. So I found a job at a sleep center, which is then combining the psychology and also that pre-law degree. And I was testing medications for sleep patients. So I worked in this laboratory that had like 6 little hotel rooms that we would have patients come and sleep at during the night. And I got to do the research side of that. And after I'd graduated on my undergrad, I had an offer to go to the National Institute of Health, which in the United States is very popular. It's our largest research institute in the country, and was able to move into cancer research there. That just became like what my career was. I feel very jealous of a lot of the people that kind of grow up saying, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a fireman, those types of things. My parents are immigrants to the United States. They did not go to college. No one else in my family had. So to me, I felt very lost trying to figure out like what that career necessarily, that 9-to-5 office job was supposed to look like. So I just ended up falling into cancer research and moving forward to it. But as you kind of mentioned in my bio, I've worked in cancer research for years, and then I quit, and then I do something entrepreneurial, and then I go back to cancer research, and then I quit, and I end up back with my own business. So it's been interesting to see how trying to make those things work And I think real estate ended up being one of those things that I can continue to do on the side along with having a full-time job, at least for now.
Got it. So do you mind me asking again? I'm not looking for any specific details when it comes to your personal, job that you're working at the moment, but I mean,
Fine.
it's very interesting because I'm sure people, who are watching this episode, maybe they don't come across a lot of people like yourself who are working in these type of, places. So like,
Mhm.
how close are we getting to something that, will help us to kind of, cure this thing behind having the, chemotherapy and radiation and the other, things?
Sure. The difficulty with that is that there's never going to be one drug, one therapy that's just going to cure every person's cancer and every type of cancer. There are so many different types of cancer, and it affects every single person's body differently because we all have different genes. So I don't think we will ever have just some type of panacea, some cure all that will help people. But I do think even the 15 years now that I've been in cancer research, it's been amazing to see what progress we've had, how we've been able to extend people's lives, how we've been able to give them a better quality of life for a longer period of time. So I think that in itself is almost a goal that if we can work towards extending people's lives and really giving them a better quality while they still can, I really kind of think that's almost winning the battle right there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we're waiting for news updates from you. Okay, people
Yes,
get in
that
contact with
and
Becky with the news
that
update.
and COVID
Mm,
vaccines. Trust me, I get a
yeah.
lot of questions. That a company I work for, we're working on a vaccine for COVID. So
Wow.
trust me, that's another another question I get all the time.
Got it. Got it. Good, good, good. But there's even more reasons to get in contact with Becky. It's not because of what she actually does, but the part time, which is, I think it's getting more into full time, step by step, which is real estate investing. So again, I would like to kind of talk about your first deal in
Mhm.
Yonkers, which is for some people who are in Europe, they're like, is that even a place? Of course it is. Yeah. So
Yes. So
duplex. Can we talk about that? How did you find the deal? How did you close in it and the process? Maybe about, how did you screen the tenants, just the fun stuff.
sure. So for anyone that's listening that's not familiar with Yonkers, I'm sure probably everybody that does listen to your podcast will know about New York City, right? We can be in agreement there. Yonkers is about 15 minutes north of New York City. I could literally walk to New York City from where I live in Yonkers. We are the fourth largest city in New York State. So still a very large city here. I had no intentions of ever living in Yonkers. I never, ever thought that this is actually where I would live. Actually, to even back that up a step, I actually never thought I would own property. I had no intention of owning a home, let alone now owning 10. Um, as you mentioned, I tend to be a little bit of a traveler. I like to have a little bit more of a suitcase kind of lifestyle. I've lived in different countries, I've lived in a ton of places. I never really wanted to put down roots or think about living in a place long term. Unfortunately, my husband had different ideas. My husband moved to the States about 10 years ago. He was an immigrant to the United States and really has a very strong vision of that American dream, which
Mhm.
includes home ownership, the white
Yeah.
picket fence, all of those types of things. So a couple years ago, he said to me, like, okay, like if you want to get serious about, marriage, family, kids, all that type of thing, I want to buy a home. And I was like, okay, we can buy a home, but we're going to buy it in a way where we can make money. So I always tell people that I came up with this fantastic idea that we should buy a multifamily and live in one side and have the other side be rented out to help with our mortgage. I had no idea what I was doing in real estate investing. I had never heard of terms. I didn't hear until what house hacking was until after we had closed. So, like I said, I thought I was very original at this time. So, we found a realtor. We actually were planning on buying in the Bronx, which is one of the boroughs of New York City. We were living there at the time, and you could definitely see that the area was changing. It was definitely a gentrifying area. We thought it'd be a great type of an investment to be a part of. Unfortunately, though, being in New York, competitive, incredibly expensive, we could not go anywhere. We were looking at a bunch of properties in the Bronx itself with our realtor, and properties were going overnight for $100,000 over asking price in cash, like the night that they were listed. And we were just like, okay, this is not going to work for us. These cannot be investment properties. There's got to be somewhere else. So it was actually our realtor's suggestion to look a couple minutes outside of New York City. And he suggested we look in Yonkers. He found one property that did not have incredibly high taxes, which New York State and New York City are known for. So we found this one property. It actually had an accepted offer on it, but they had not been in contract. My realtor said, well, let's just go for it. Let's make an offer and see what happens. I actually had not seen the property. My husband went, he saw the property. He's a little bit pickier than I am. So to him, he made sure that the property looked aesthetically what he wanted. I just ran the numbers, made sure we were going to be living for free. I said, fine, put it in offer. Let's go for it. We got an offer. We got our real estate broker came back to us and said that the seller was willing to entertain our offer, but was asking for a best and final offer from both parties. So we went back. We clearly ended up getting the accepted offer on that property. So that was incredibly exciting. A fun story to always share about that was we were waiting here in the States, or at least in New York. After you have the accepted offer, you have to get your inspection done, and then you go into contract. So all weekend, I was so nervous about somebody else coming and putting an offer on this property, just like we did to other people, that like I could not sleep the entire weekend. That Monday, it was finally time for the home inspection. We're going to the property. My husband was there first because I was coming from work. And he gets there and he calls me and he goes, we have a problem. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is this problem now? He goes, well, just look at your pictures. And he sent me a picture, and our property had been vandalized and had been graffitied in hot orange spray paint over the weekend, with just horrible racial epitaphs. So long story short, we ended up deciding to still do the home inspection, and we come to find out that the house was graffitied by the other couple that lost the bidding war.
Wow.
They were
if you guys are
apparently
watching, if you are watching. Yeah.
The great reason to have security cameras on your property, because the only reason the police were able to find this out was because of a neighbor's security camera. They were able to identify who it was that had vandalized our property.
That's ridiculous.
They were hoping to that's how competitive things are here, that they were really hoping to scare us away so that the seller would have to go back to them for the property.
Yeah.
So clearly didn't work. We ended up with it. We went into contract. We used a conventional mortgage. So since it was owner occupied, we put down 5%, and we were able to close on that property. And my husband and I moved in, and then we rented out the apartment. So it's actually an apartment above us. In New York, sometimes we don't have space width-wise. We go high. So we have 2 apartments, one on top of the other. We actually originally decided to use our realtor to list the apartment. Same thing, the United States, New York especially, we have very strict fair housing laws. So it tends to be a much better idea to use a realtor, so that way you know that all of the laws and regulations are followed and you don't end up in a lawsuit, which is very popular here. Wow. So we used that realtor, and he really was able to walk us through a lot of that process. But oddly enough, the place I ended up finding a tenant was at the bar down the street. I happened to be talking to the bartender, and the bartender was mentioned. I said I was new in town, and I told him, I just moved up the street. And he mentioned that he was looking for an apartment around the neighborhood if he knew of anything. And I said, actually, I have one. So he ended up being our first tenant, and he's now been with us for the past 2.5 years, and he's lived in 2 of our buildings. So he's been a great tenant.
I mean, what are the odds of finding people like that? It's like maybe that's a strategy for you guys. Well, of course, during the COVID, maybe the restrictions when it comes to the social distancing, but just hang around the bars more.
That's actually the second tenant I found from going to a bar.
Wow, that is
the second
amazing.
one.
That is interesting.
So
okay.
It's just a good reminder for everyone to always, if you're looking for something, if you want something, put it out into the universe. If you're looking for a seller that wants to get rid of their property, tell everybody because you'll never know who's going to come back and say, actually, I happen to know somebody that's looking to get rid of their property, or I know somebody that's looking for an apartment. Whatever you put out into the universe, it'll find a way to bring it back to you.
Definitely, and shout out to your husband Emilio again for putting this thought into yourself personally about, we need to buy real estate, which is a
Mhm.
good thing. And again, I'm sure he have a thick skin enough that,
Yeah.
coming from Dominican, Republic, that
Mhm.
no graffiti will scare him. He probably seen enough himself personally, back home. So
Yeah.
yeah.
He
So
and he was smart enough too, being like, this doesn't make sense. And it's definitely a Class C neighborhood. So you
mhm,
wouldn't be surprised necessarily to see spray paint, but it was just clearly so targeted on this property that even he was like, something's off with this. It doesn't add up properly.
yeah,
So I was very happy too that he was comfortable moving forward. But he didn't care. We had the firemen come and try to like use their hose to power wash off the words. We got to meet all the neighbors. We met all the police. It was a great introduction to the neighborhood.
here you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it worked out well. Okay, so what's happening currently with that property? Because you still have it, right? So what is the exit
Yes.
strategy? You're going to keep it long term, and you're going to wait
Hmm.
for that depreciation while still get paid the cash flow. Like what are the rents are like in that area?
Sure. So our strategy here is definitely long term for the buy and hold. And I like buying in areas where two things are going to happen. One, where my rents are going to go up, and two, where there's going to be the appreciation on the building itself. So where we bought in this Class C neighborhood, it is absolutely a gentrifying neighborhood. This will change. This already has appreciated quite a bit over the past 2 years, a little bit more than in kind of some other general areas. So this is definitely a place that we plan on keeping for a while.
Got it.
So rents here for a one bedroom, you're looking at around between 15 and 1700 for the one bedroom apartment. And then the second is actually a very interesting unit. The second unit we have here is it's a 2-floor duplex. So we have one apartment on one floor, and then the next apartment upstairs is actually 2 floors itself that has
Mhm.
3 bedrooms and 1.5 baths. So that clearly can go for a little bit more money there. So that's going for about 2,800 right now.
Nice. Okay.
So
So you kind of like the area so much that you purchased another, which it was a fourplex that you bought.
yes,
Yeah.
we ended up buying our neighbor's property right across the street. So that happens to be a fourplex. That was actually interesting how that came about. I didn't know this at the beginning, but a couple months after we bought the first property, like I said, once we closed and I started getting rental money in, I was like, oh my God, I love this. Let's do this again. That's when I started finding all these different podcasts and books and groups. And that's actually when I learned what house hacking was. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm not as original as I thought I was going to be. There's so many people that are really getting their start in real estate investing through house hacking. So I had stayed in touch. Once again, networking is something incredibly important to me. So I'd stayed in touch with my realtor. And a couple months later, I kind of called him and said, hey, I want to buy another property. What can we do? And he goes, actually, I might have something for you. It's in your neighborhood, but I need you to get pre-approved. It's not on the market, but I just need to know if you're going to be able to buy it. You just bought a property like 4 months ago. We want to make sure you can do this again. So I was like, man, like where is this house? I'm wondering, looking around the neighborhood. I know it's somewhere close to where I am. And my husband caught our realtor coming out of our neighbor's house. And he was like, that's got to be it. It's got to be the place across the street. Apparently, when my realtor was at the first duplex getting the appraisal done, the little old lady from across the street came over, and she'd lived here her whole life. And she now didn't know who this realtor was in the neighborhood or what he was doing. So this little old lady walks up to my realtor and like kind of like knocks on his shoulder and is like, hey, who are you? I don't know you. What are you doing in my neighborhood? So he explained, I'm a realtor. This house is being sold. So they kept in touch as well, networking once again. She said, you know what? I'm getting old. I might want to sell my property. So stay in touch. So it was her that decided that the property was going to go on the market. Her and her husband decided to sell. And once again, they were perfectly happy to sell to, the new couple that had just moved across the street. So they sold us their quadplex. That was an interesting deal because it was, unfortunately, a little old couple had not really taken care of the property for many years. They really hadn't done any upkeep in about 30 years. And they were also hoarders, which means that every inch of their property was covered with something that
Wow.
we would call garbage, but that they called valuable. So it couldn't just be a situation where we could just call and order a dumpster and have everything thrown out. These were items that this couple really felt needed to be packed up, moved, and they actually bought a piece of land in the state of Pennsylvania to move all of their, once again, what we would call trash, but what they call prized possessions to. So it took quite a bit of time to be able to work out a plan and to be able to have that plan through closing to be able to have the property cleaned up appropriately.
Okay, so that's interesting. Is that how people conduct business in New York City? They just go to the bars and just tap people on the shoulder. Hey, what do you do? That's how the people go about.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I truly think that's networking. It
Yeah.
is, you always hear the phrase, like, it is kind of who you know.
Yeah.
Your net worth is your network. Like, that really kind of does work out. You never know the opportunities that are going to be presented to you. And it always seems to be, it's not necessarily the person in front of you, but it's the people behind the person you're talking to. So
Yeah.
you never know kind of what opportunities are going to pop up.
Got it. So coming back to those properties again, the duplex and the fourplex, I mean, have you added any value to the properties? Have you spent some money to like renovations? If so, like how much have you spent per property?
Sure. So the duplex that we bought, we actually bought it from a flipper, oddly enough.
Okay.
So the property was really turnkey. There was not much for us to do. There were some things that unfortunately the flipper did not do well. They ended up going cheap on quite a few things, but not really value add. The only thing that we were able to do, which probably other people listening to this is going to find this crazy, but what we in New York absolutely think is like one of the two most valuable things you could add to a property. The one that we actually were able to add to that duplex is outdoor space. That if you have a piece of green in New York, in the city, oh my God, like you can get premium prices on that.
Wow.
So we were able to add a very lovely outdoor patio with a gorgeous fence, nice grass there, large, what we consider a large space for a backyard. So that was definitely something where we were able to add value to there. Otherwise, the property here, the property for the duplex, which I'm currently living in still, does not really need that much work. The property across the street that we bought from this little old couple, we've added a ton of value to. Nothing crazy where we had to really do a lot of renovations, but once again, the property was just not kept up appropriately. So out of the 4 units that were there, right? So we had a quadplex. We had the people in the basement apartment. They actually stayed. We inherited those tenants. They've been a great couple. They lived through really this hoarding situation where it was a fire hazard for them to walk in and out of their house. And I don't know how they did that for years. They chose to say they are very happy that it is clean, that we have redone, everything's been repainted, all the walls, we've redone floors and all the common spaces. They are very appreciative of those types of things. The first floor apartment, I actually had that bartender that I mentioned earlier that lived in one of our other buildings in the duplex. He actually moved across the street into the quadplex. Now, what happened with him is interesting. In the duplex, he lived with a roommate and he realized that was just not going to work for him. And he really wanted to live on his own. He's a great tenant. He pays on time. Even during COVID, when he lost his job being a bartender, he did everything he could to pay us every penny that he had available from his unemployment, from the stimulus checks that the United States government gave us. He really was so open and forthcoming with us. He's been a great tenant, but he could not afford to really live on his own in a 1-bedroom apartment here. So we made a deal with him that, listen, we will have you move in and we'll give you discounted rent because we know you're a great tenant, but we're not going to update your kitchen. The kitchen in his apartment is definitely outdated. It just doesn't look fresh and clean and up to date. He doesn't care. He's a 25-year-old guy. He's okay with this. So he was perfectly happy to be able to live with a little bit of an older kitchen.
Yeah, he's fine with the dirty stools in a bar. I mean, and dirty tables, and that's his environment. I'm not saying it's maybe it sounds just wrong, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and he really wanted his own space. That was really important to him. So for him to have not to have a granite countertop, he was okay with that. So it's actually worked out. So we told him that is something we were going to actually update right when COVID hit. So we both kind of agreed, we'll keep rent at a lower price. We'll redo the kitchen next year. So it was really great to be able to work with him and to have a tenant that we were able to get in perfectly fine and to kind of have those negotiations. So once again, it's the idea of kind of keeping your mind open and seeing what possibilities are there. The third floor, same thing, probably the kitchen and the bathroom is a little bit outdated, but we put it on the market just to see if we would get tenants in. And then we said, okay, well, if we don't find somebody that would work for us within a couple days, we'll get some quotes and we'll have the place renovated and we'll get the whole thing updated. That apartment was rented in less than 12 hours.
Wow.
So we haven't had to update that one. And then the fourth floor, the one on the top, that one we did completely renovate. That one we renovated. Actually, my husband and I had gotten married 10 days before that house closed. And we closed on like Tuesday. We actually had a film production company rent out the backyard of our house for a movie. So we closed at like 9. When we finished the closing at like noon, I called the production company and I said, okay, now it's my property. You can now legally step onto it and start filming. We had our contractors meet us at 2. They started demolition that moment. The next morning, now on Wednesday, at like 9 o'clock, we went to the hardware store, the Home Depot in the United States, to go get all of our materials, and then started the renovation. And my husband and I left that day for our honeymoon. So we were actually on our honeymoon on the other side of the world, and our contractor is calling us. And it's, for us, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And he's like walking us around, showing us like our new bathroom. And he's like, why is it like so dark over there? And we're like, well, it's 2 a.m. So, that's why. And he was just like, he's like, I keep forgetting, where you guys are, or that this is your honeymoon. And we were like, but this is business. So, and that what you're doing is actually kind of going to pay for our honeymoon. So keep calling us about, updates. So that was the only apartment that we really had to update. Besides that, we had to do a lot of the outside work. So we had to do like a new porch. We had to repaint a lot of things. We had to repave a driveway. And one of the largest issues, as I mentioned, they had to clean up a lot of the property. They did not clean up the backyard space at all. So we've been working for the past now year and a half, really getting not only the items cleaned out that are just dangerous to be there, but then also putting in something that our tenants will be able to use. So we're hopeful that will happen now spring of 2021. They will have now outside space too.
Wow. So, I mean, there's a lot going on in that property. If it takes 1.5 years to kind of just clean it up when it comes to the, backyard. So yeah, but I do understand, like, so it's good. I mean, in your case, it worked out for you. You get this kind of trophy property for yourself, and it's part of the portfolio now, and you're keeping it, and the tenants are paying, best possible way that they can right now during the COVID. So that's awesome. So when it comes to the maintenance issues, I mean, do you manage these properties yourself, or you have a third-party management? How do you go about, the like day-to-day issues?
Sure. So it depends. If it's the properties in the United States, my husband and I manage those. If the property that we do own in the Dominican Republic, that one we clearly have a property manager for. That we do not take care of ourselves. But it's been interesting to see how the property management that we do ourselves has worked out. My husband and I are both very fortunate to be very handy. So I might not look at it, but I am very good at painting. I am very good with patching holes in walls. I'm very good at prepping walls and installing and carpentry. That happens to be skills that I have. I'm also very good with landscaping. My husband happens to be very good with electric and plumbing. So we look at projects and we say, what are things that we can do ourselves? Okay, this we can do ourselves, that we can do ourselves. And then we realize, okay, this is above our pay grade. This is above what we know how to do. This now has to go to a contractor. This is going to need somebody special, somebody with expertise to really be able to do those things. So it's been really nice that he and I have been able to kind of work on that, and we both have our own skill sets. And we know when a tenant messages us, we use an email for all of our maintenance requests, even though usually our tenants will still call us because we try to be on really good relationships with our tenants. But we know when we get a message that whatever the item is, we know like, oh, okay, that's you, honey. that's your project. Oh no, okay, that one's mine. So we have a really good relationship for kind of balancing out whose responsibility is what. And then, like I said, we do also know when we need to hire somebody and not just try to do it ourselves.
Got it. Got it. Good. I mean, sometimes even though like maybe if somebody who is watching and they thinking, oh my God, I don't have the skills that Becky's having or Emilio, you can always learn these skills by just doing the work, just slowly
Yeah.
kind of learning. And there's a lot of content on YouTube and different, platforms that you can kind of learn step by step, DUI and, a lot of different things. So definitely.
Yes, YouTube has been incredibly helpful. And then before COVID, one thing that we were able to do, my husband was able to go not only to a Home Depot center, and also a community college. They offer just general, how to fix certain things around your house that were very hands-on experience. So once again, might not work for everybody in the world right now, but that is something to kind of keep in mind if you want a little more hands-on experience besides YouTube.
Exactly. And it's a good process. I mean, by just doing the work yourself. So the next time you will hire somebody to kind of manage properties for yourself, you will know, like when it comes to vetting property managers, at least you can ask a specific questions because you will be kind of familiar with the problems that arise in your properties because you know them inside out by now. So, that's going to be available for you also. So talking about, please.
No, last thing I was going to say was just also it helps us now evaluate new properties because now we know a little bit more of what to look for. So it just helps every time that we learn something, it just helps us kind of grow our portfolio and make better decisions next time.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask, what do you have currently going on in the pipeline? I mean, what type of deals are you looking for? And are you still looking to buy in a like New York State, or maybe you're looking different states at the same time?
So since the duplex 2, we closed, things have just changed in the world now, right? Everything's a little bit different. So we had already bought the property in DR before the beginning of this year. But in around January, February, one thing that we were actually thinking about doing was we were actually going to not buy a property in 2020. We were going to save up money because properties are expensive here. We were not going to buy any property in 2020. And we were going to plan on buying a large multifamily again in Yonkers in 2021. So it was things that was kind of our agreement, right? Like, I feel like my husband thinks like, I buy houses like other women buy shoes, right? Like he was like, okay, we have to agree, like no more buying houses. And I was like, okay, fine. So when COVID hit back in March, I was kind of like, okay, totally makes sense. None of us know what's really going to happen with this. And then a couple months into it, I kind of noticed people were moving. People didn't feel very comfortable in cities. People were actually going and staying at their summer homes in upstate New York. So upstate New York is half the price of properties as where it is where I'm used to buying. So I said, okay, well, let's kind of look at where people are going and what's happening. So I decided, well, let's just look at the opportunity of what it would be like to buy a property out of our normal area. So we kind of set parameters. So I said, okay, I want 3 things. 1, I want a property that's within an hour of my house. I want to make sure that it's something I could drive to, that I can easily get to without too much problems, but also something that I won't need a property manager for at this time, something that I can manage myself. So we figured an hour away was pretty reasonable. So that was condition 1. 2, I wanted tenants that were already in place. Now, a lot of people were really hesitant to be able to inherit tenants now during COVID with like not knowing really their ability to pay. But I figured, okay, that's information I can get. Those are things that I could check by talking to the seller and doing my due diligence there. So that's condition 2. I want to have paying tenants in place that are up to date with comfortable jobs. Condition 3 was that it needed to be something turnkey. I wanted to buy something that did not need a ton of work. Like I said, all day long, my husband and I, all we do is you just see us walking across the street with different tools and ladders and plants and gardening stuff. I didn't want something that every weekend I would have a project. I wanted a place that when I closed, I'm going to get a check from the tenants and then just be able to move on and be rolling smoothly there. So we found a gorgeous property. It's exactly an hour away. It has tenants in place that are absolutely fantastic and it needs no work. So we just closed on that about 2 weeks ago. So yes, here's what happens. We close, my husband and I then go out to dinner to then kind of celebrate closing. And I'm like, okay, great. So what are we buying next? And he's like, no. And I'm like, no, but what are we buying next? So what our next plan probably is to buy a short-term rental in the Dominican Republic. The property we own in the Dominican Republic right now is a long-term rental. It is in a city. It is not on a beach. I know it's in a Caribbean island, but it is not on a beach. So, and that was something that was really important to him, to be able to provide safe and cost-effective housing from in the city that he grew up. That was really, really important to him. I was fine with that. But now I want my beach rental. So most likely in spring of 2021, we will be buying a beach rental up there. But we're going to watch and see what happens with COVID and see what that market looks like and kind of decide to go from there. We might end up having to switch up our strategy once again, depending on what's going on in the world. But otherwise, short-term rental is going to be the place that we're going to move to next.
Got it. So is one of the reasons, I do understand it's good to have a place that you can go and visit personally yourself. Again, as you said, your pick is going to be this beach, kind of beachfront, maybe, you know, rental place that you can go and visit once in a while yourself, particularly during times like these when we have time and we want to escape the city. It's good to go away. But at the same time, do you using Dominican Republic for, you know, for tax advantages too, or?
So actually, we haven't used it for any tax advantages. So as I mentioned in the very beginning of this interview, I'm not a person that ever wanted to buy a house, right? My goal was to be able to move. My long-term goal is to move out of the States again. And I want to go live on a beach. And really, I want to run like a bed and breakfast. We're not there yet. We are not ready for that at that point in time. I'm definitely the risk taker in our relationship. My husband is the one that's much more stable and has a lot more questions about things. I just kind of jump and he's like, wait, but like, how do we pay taxes? Or where is our medical insurance going to come from? And I'm like, babe, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. So we are a good balance in that sense. But to me, kind of this looking for that short-term rental now, the idea is that I would like to be able to go there. I eventually would like to move, most likely to the Dominican Republic, since that's where his family is. It just makes more sense, and kind of maybe even do like a 6 month type thing. So it would be kind of a nice start to buy a beach rental where then we can go to for a month here, then maybe 2 months, and really just kind of start to get him comfortable with the idea of moving to it back to originally where he's from. So that's, I think, why we're kind of planning on moving in those steps. It'll definitely be something where I will be booking my own time to be able to go there, but then we probably will buy another apartment there. Tax advantages does not really do much for us. My husband is a dual citizen. I will soon be a dual citizen through marriage. So that will be nice, but I find that we actually have many more tax advantages in the United States than we do in DR.
Okay, got it. So some education for me here as well. So awesome, thanks for sharing. So again, what does it take for you personally to be like, what type of goal are we talking about for you to be able to achieve the goal where you can actually relocate to the Dominican Republic? Like, what does it take for you guys to achieve that goal?
Sure. So from a financial sense, we're actually there. We are financially independent at this point in time from the rentals we've accumulated over the past 2 years now. If he was ready to go, I would quit my job tomorrow, but he is not necessarily ready for that. So we've kind of agreed that it'll be in a 3-year time frame. So in 3 years, that's then when, so we're going to start this transition of just a little by little. We are probably actually going to go live in the Dominican Republic for the winter, which I'm so looking forward to, and probably do a little house shopping while we're there. But that's going to be pretty much the start of this transition. And then we really plan on then by 2024 to be able to be living there full time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're just living the dream by other people's standards. They're looking at you like, man, living on a beach, I'll do that right now. You know, take me there. So
yeah,
that's
we should all live our dreams.
Yeah,
we should all, if that's something you want. I mean, that's what I think is so cool about real estate investing is it can fit everybody can do this. There's always an angle, a way to make it work. It's like a big puzzle. There's so many different facets to real estate investing that I do feel that if you grew up poor, you grew up with money, it does not make a difference. You can still find a way to get involved, to start playing the game. And then you really just have to kind of move the pieces around like chess to figure out how to make it work for you and your long-term goals. If you want to go live on a beach, great. If you just want, an extra $100 a month to help cover your phone bill, you can do that too. It's all very individually based.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. So again, talking about, education part, again, you have the Facebook group that is called Lady Landlords. So again, can you talk about that? What type of value are you providing for the women, and like when it comes to education, like how they can learn becoming part of the group about real estate investing?
Sure. So back really at the beginning of the pandemic, when everyone's quarantined and stuck at home, same thing. I feel like my husband was a little tired of hearing about real estate all the time. So I was like, cool, I'm going to go make some, friends on the internet. So I had started Lady Landlords back then, and I really started it to ask my own questions. It was something I'm still learning. I think we always should be. And when I started the group, it just completely blew up. We have over 6,000 members that have joined in less than 6 months. It clearly is a place where women feel that they need supported. And I hear that time and time again, that they just feel like it's this breath of fresh air to come into a place where it's just all women and they feel that they can just openly and comfortably ask their questions. So what I do is I build resources for whatever the group asks for. So for example, they really wanted an accountability group. So, okay, we put together an accountability group. So we have people that are beginners, people that are looking to grow their portfolio, working with other members there that are then able to meet with other people to help keep them on track towards their goals and help have regular check-ins with that. It's also a completely open platform for people just to ask their questions. So we get hundreds of questions a day from women, either about, I have this issue with this tenant, what should I do about this mortgage? I can't get a mortgage. I lost my job during COVID. What can I now do to get involved in real estate? It's just really a questions and answering board of what they are able to do and how to do it. I cannot tell you how many members of the group have either met each other and be able to partner up on things, that have found deals through each other. So it's really just a beautiful thing to see so many women coming that really are looking to grasp hold of their own financial freedom.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I love the cause, and I love the fact that you're taking time, to do that while building your own personal portfolio and business at the same time. So you're finding time to dedicate your time, so that's awesome. So one of the other ways that people can learn about real estate investing, particular women, is through the courses. So can you go through that a little bit? What people should expect in your courses? What type of material is going to be there?
Sure. So I have two different courses. One is the beginner's course. The beginner's course is literally figuring out what you should be doing in real estate, right? If you want to be a flipper, if you want to be a landlord, really figuring out like, what is your plan? What are you eventually trying to get to? I always explain to people, yes, I'm a real estate investor, but my goal is not to own all of the real estate. I don't want to own 100 units. I want to own the least amount of units for the most amount of money. Right? That's my goal. Now, that's not everybody else's. A lot of other people want to say, I own 100 units or I own 50 units. They want that number. Totally fine. So we help women get really, really clear on what it is that they're looking for and making sure that whatever their goal is that they want to get to matches with the strategy they pick. So same thing. If my goal is to make the most amount of money with the least amount of units, well, long distance buying where I'm buying in a state where I don't get a return like I do as I would in New York, well, that doesn't match my goal. It's not the right way to go. So I want to make sure that women get very clear on making sure that they're going in the right path. We also teach them in the beginner's course how to analyze deals, how to pick their market, how to find the right team members, what questions to ask a contractor, a realtor, or a mortgage broker to make sure that they're the person for you. The intermediate course is for people that have one property, one door, and now are looking for more. The idea of, well, now maybe I have to get a little more creative on financing. Or, well, how big do I really want to take this? Same kind of thing. Do I want to own one more property and just have two? Or do I want to own 50 properties? And getting really understanding of what they need to do for that long-term success, and also how to run their real estate portfolio as a business. What tax advantages are there? What insurances are there? What type of legal structures do you need? All of those things really kind of go into running a business rather than just having a rental property. And then we also have, for both of those courses, it also comes with the accountability group and a mentorship program where then they get like a specialized training where they can get specific help with their questions, with their specific deals.
Got it. So there's a lot of information, a lot of great valuable information, and yeah. So be sure to go and check it out on that's ladylandlords.com, and of course you're going to find the link down below. Again, for the Facebook group, you have to make sure that you join part of that, and of course follow Becky on Instagram and and go for the YouTube for those free resources there as well. But it's been a good fun to talking with you today and enjoy kind of this story, because I always love personally the stories. And again, you and Emilio kind of, you know, building personal business for your personal reasons. And again, that's kind of what you said, it's your personal strategy. But I love the fact that you mentioned it's very important to have your goals in line with the strategy, with the investing strategy, which is very, very important. So I love the fact that you mentioned that. So guys and girls, particularly girls, if you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend of yours who is looking to learn about real estate investing, because she will find a lot of great, valuable tools, tips, strategies, inspiration, and you know, on business goal setting, how do you find deals, and of course there is more, you know, on the website. So make sure you follow up with Becky and get in contact with her. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. So thanks for being today on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time and inviting me over.
That's no problem. Always a pleasure. So again, guys, make sure to pass this episode along. And as always, I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching.